Good evening and rough start. Good afternoon and welcome back to College Football On Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sportsnet. I'm Chris White, joined alongside with Bruno Oger. What's going on, Bruno?
How's it going, buddy? Another good week of college football. The regular season has come to a close. Coaches are getting fired left and right. It's been a very exciting couple of days. I mean, obviously the rivalry kind of lived up to its hype in a way. I mean, not that there was a lot of games that we were really looking forward to, but there was a lot of games that ended up being really damn good.
At least a couple that I was able to watch like start to finish that were just phenomenal games.
Yeah, how did you feel about the Michigan and Ohio State game this weekend? Did you get to enjoy it? I know that you work kind of early.
Yeah, you know what? I actually had all my work done by the time it started, so I was just waiting to punch out, watching it on my phone. And I kept it on the radio on the way home, picked the kids up, and then once I got up or Coco or some shit on the TV for Jackson, I busted my laptop out and was able to watch the whole second half uninterrupted. But, I mean, I know we kind of talked about it. Was that Friday? That you guys were – all three of us didn't give a shit who won. But if you had your pick, you guys took Michigan, I took Ohio State.
Yeah.
Even though I lost, still don't care. But there was just a little bit of like bittersweetness to them picking Kyle McCord off on that final drive, like that ball that went through. I don't remember his name, but the Notre Dame player. That final drive of the play against Ohio State, just right through.
Yeah, I that's been shown pretty much a lot in terms of like just the ability of like Michigan to actually close it out with the ball that he threw through his hands, and Notre Dame not able to. I don't want to kind of even remember that anymore. I'm kind of just
I've wasted enough tears on that game.
Yeah, I mean, that was months ago at this point now. I'm kind of just don't even want to think about that portion and just move forward in terms of the state of Notre Dame and everything else from there. But overall, I mean, that game was absolutely wild, back and forth. One thing that was really kind of stood out to me over the last couple of days is just, man, do these Ohio State fans not get over shit? It's crazy.
Was it the group chat that somebody sent like a screenshot of an Ohio State fan in?
Yeah, I sent that.
Okay, I can remember if someone else sent it to me. Like, that's so far.
Yeah, honestly, and it still just hasn't stopped all weekend. Like even this morning, I woke up and I'm seeing a couple of the Ohio State fans I follow on Twitter, just kind of go a little off the deep end still. You know, of course, they're going to sit there and do everything they can to say that they need to be a top 4 team still after this game. And
yeah, my buddy from work texted me. He's like, it's bullshit. They're number 6. They should be number 5. Oregon lost. I was like, yeah, that was coaching, and you know that could have been a missed kick as a decider in that game. Ohio State got outplayed to a backup coach.
Yeah, Oregon's being looked at by the Ohio State fans as like the 62nd strength of schedule versus the number 9 strength of schedule, and who they've beaten and who they've played. And then I just sit there and I look, I'm like, well, Oregon's playing in a championship game this week against a team that they've lost to, and they're somehow a 9-point favorite going into this game. So that just kind of shows what people really think in terms of Oregon and how lowly ranked they are, and kind of a big reason of why we need a bigger college football playoff than just the 4 teams in general, is because these debates are going to stand no matter what. I mean, the debates are going to be there next year when there's that 13th place team that doesn't get in or whatever. Right. And it's like, well, you know, they're a 3-loss team. They're 9-3. They shouldn't be there anyway, I guess, kind of thing.
When Notre Dame's ranked 12 next year and Liberty gets it over them, I'm going to be throwing a fit on this show here. But until then,
hey man, if Liberty loses,
there will be a whole lot of debating going on.
But yeah, I mean, you watch this game, and I mean, I know all the time you're always playing a game of inches, and there's a lot of calls that I mean, this game had the slowest pace in the world. I mean, if you
Oh, dude, the reviews and everything.
yeah, I mean, they were trying to go above and beyond in terms of the reviews, and that's still the main thing that I'm seeing bitched about is the Ohio State fans.
There was an interception in the end zone.
Yeah, they're just not accepting anything in terms of it.
Like, you know the rules.
Yeah,
It has to be clearly overturned. Like, it has to be very clear to overturn. If it was ruled an interception, it probably would have stayed an interception, but it was ruled a touchdown.
yeah, literally stuff that we all have to kind of deal with, and we all see it, and we all go through it in terms of whoever your rooting interest may be. But you gotta get over this. You know, you can't be blaming this game on the officials because the way that it looked the whole entire way through was that Michigan was the better team out there. I mean, JJ McCarthy made some crazy passes. The one touchdown pass to Roman Wilson in that game, he threw it right between two defenders that I can't even.
Yeah, he split them from, what was that, like the 27-yard line or something not too far out there, and he just dotted it right between two defenders.
Yeah, like I couldn't believe that he even made that catch. And then the defender for Ohio State actually made a really good play on it where he almost stripped the ball away from Roman Wilson so he didn't complete the catch, and he somehow was able to hold on to it and keep it into his hands there. But I mean, that's just the kind of bail that it was. And I mean, you go back, there's over 150 different plays in this game, and there's so many people that want to lay it all up on one play. You know, obviously a lot of people, like when Notre Dame lost to Ohio State, they keep on talking about the 10-man on the field and stuff like that. It's like, you know, there was plenty of blunders along the way that kind of helped lead to that situation even getting to where it was.
They never should have been there, but like they put themselves in that spot.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, just the one thing that we've kind of stuck on this whole season, you saw it again, was Kyle McCord is not the top of the line Ohio State quarterback that you're used to. And
the same guy who's been crying at to me all year about how he doesn't get enough respect and how he's better than Jordan Travis and blah, blah, blah. He's texting me like 7 minutes into the first quarter, like, he's not him, man. He's not him. I'm like, well, no shit. Kind of been telling you that for 3 months now.
Yeah, I mean,
he's been getting better. You know, it's a night and day from week one to now, but he's still not that guy. He's not at that level. He's not, you know, Michael Penix or Caleb Williams.
I mean, he was basically saved throughout the year because of Marvin Harrison Jr. too. Without Marvin Harrison Jr. out there, like, this Ohio State team in general is probably not undefeated coming into this game against Michigan.
I could throw over 50% with 2 touchdowns if I had Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, that's why us Chicago people, I'm just kind of banking everything. I'm like, I ignore everything else, ignore the quarterbacks. I don't care. Just draft Marvin Harrison Jr. with anything you got to do. Just get Marvin Harrison Jr. here because I want to see that guy be a generational wide receiver for the Bears for years to come.
Well, now he's saying that he might not even declare, which I call bullshit. But
yeah, I don't think that's true.
I didn't beat Michigan. I didn't get to play in a Big Ten championship. I didn't get to win a national championship. Well, you're not going to next year either. So just declare for the draft. Make your money. Don't risk injury.
Well, that's all possible with, you know, if any sanctions come down against Michigan, but from what I have read this morning is there is not going to be any sanctions being put on the team in terms of the college football playoff or anything like that. So Michigan's going to be able to run through the rest of the season and go about it the way that they would like to in terms of hopefully running through and winning the college football playoff. But, you know, they got to get past Iowa first. So it's
a tough mountain to climb, or maybe like a tough bunny hill to climb.
Yeah, as long as they got to just find a way to put up like 13 points and they should be good. So,
score 2 touchdowns in like the first 7 minutes of the game and then just put all your backups in, and then we'll actually be able to watch a decent game of football.
Yeah, I honestly like looking ahead at the championship week. The best championship game is Friday night with Oregon and Washington. That's the main one to watch. And then the second best one to probably watch will be Alabama and Georgia on Saturday afternoon, and then the nightcap is the Big Ten title game and ACC title game, which I'll watch.
Who gives a shit?
Well, the ACC title game will be interesting just to see if Florida State does lose, because if they don't lose, you're kind of stuck putting them in the final.
You have to.
Without,
I mean, your hands are tied, even with the backup quarterback.
I mean, it seemed to me like they should have. They had a good opportunity to lose to Miami. I wasn't able to watch the rest of that game, but I saw they ended up winning 24-15, and that was one of the only legs of a parlay that really ended up screwing me in the afternoon. Could have had a $600 winner, and Miami gave up a touchdown late when they kept it close the whole way, and it looked like early in the game Miami was actually going to win. So it's going to be interesting to see if Florida State continues to struggle. Louisville coming off of a bad loss this weekend, but it's because Louisville's not really a good road team, and that's kind of what I've noticed throughout their season. Even when they lost to Pitt, that was a road game, and then they struggled against some other teams when they were on the road, and they just seem to take care of business at home. So it's a neutral site game. Kind of, it'll be interesting to see
I think Florida State always travels pretty well. I'm not too sure about how Louisville does.
Oh, Louisville fans will travel. That's not going to be a problem, I don't think. But I think that you kind of got to be a little more down after you lose to your in-state rival the week after. And like, well, we're supposed to go to this ACC title game, and they're supposed to be roses, and now they're going to be ranked. They'll probably still be ranked in the top 15 or something somehow. But
this is what, their third loss?
Second.
Louisville's second loss?
Yep.
Because they lost to Pitt. I thought they lost to someone else just a couple weeks ago.
They didn't.
Okay.
You're wrong. You're a liar.
Whatever. So I know it's all bullshit and whatever for as of right now, but everybody on Twitter, or Ohio State Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is calling for Ryan Day's head.
Yeah,
like,
he's
what's he 1-3 against Michigan, whatever. He's 1-3 against Michigan, but he's like 60-6 against everybody else.
Yeah, I think his record overall is 56-7. I didn't even realize that he won a game against Michigan. I thought that he lost every single game he had against Michigan. So
I believe it was his first year, that COVID year.
Oh, okay, yeah, COVID year.
Pre-sign stealing.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I do kind of remember us talking about that before. But yeah, like he's 56-7 overall in terms of his time at Ohio State, and I mean, just the idea is if you don't beat Michigan, you shouldn't be the head coach at Ohio State. And Ohio State hasn't had this kind of struggle with Michigan in a long time, because
didn't they win like 10 in a row from like 05 to 15 or something like that?
Yeah, I think
it went back and forth a few years, and now Michigan's on a run.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been in terms of like most of our lifetime where Michigan's actually had a run against them. It's more like they get a win here every so often, and for the most part, it's just been always Ohio State dominating the series. And
I think I remember the last, like, maybe it was 3-year run that they're currently on. The last one they had was like the Charles Woodson Heisman year, was because he was at Michigan in what, like 6, 7, and 8, or 5, 6, and 7, something like that.
Even that doesn't seem like it was. I feel like he was there longer ago than that.
Not 05. I meant like 95, 96, 97.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it's been a long time coming for Michigan to kind of have this sort of dominance over Ohio State. And the thing is, they kind of let Jim Harbaugh stick around throughout years and years of Jim Harbaugh being able to beat them either. So
yeah, I mean, he's been with them for, it's got to be like 10 years now, right?
It's been over a decade. So
yeah, I mean, they've had their patience, and whether it paid off with cheating or not, I mean, obviously they just went out there with a substitute head coach and handled Ohio State the way they needed to. So I mean,
coach.
I guess putting in that time was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it all took to steal signs to get there, but it's
Allegedly.
yeah, I mean, whatever. But
Harbaugh's never seen those videos.
Me either, actually. So we have something in common.
I have once.
Wow, dang.
I cannot see Ryan Day going anywhere just because
I think that's over with now.
The SEC job's gone. I mean, I can't imagine him that anywhere else is a demotion.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think that going to Texas A&M was much of a promotion.
It's not, but at least going to an SEC team, I've said it to you a million times. The guy was born on third base, and that's fine, but you can't go around acting like you hit a triple. So watching him start something from scratch would have either been, way to go, you shut me up, or just very comical to watch for the next couple of years till he gets fired.
Yeah, I don't really think that he would be a good replacement for anybody at any school in terms of his abilities so far, because he hasn't shown it without being handed the organization to help. I don't know which one of us it was, but somebody made a comment that Ohio State kind of recruits for itself, and in a way that's very true. I mean, they like the name of the school. I mean, I forget what they kept saying on the Fox broadcast this week. Like the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes, and I'm like, world famous, and I just kept on.
That was me, and I was like, because it is. I mean, if you grow up an Ohio State fan, like I'm a Notre Dame fan. If I was 19 years old, getting ready to go off to college, and I had offers from Bama, Florida, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame went, 3-9 last year, and they're not going to look any better, I'm still going to go to Notre Dame. I mean, you got to imagine that's how a lot of these kids who got offers from Ohio State felt too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where Ohio State is in terms of organizational pride, and just most people, like besides Drew Aller, they're going to be the guy. If they're recruited inside the state of Ohio State, they're gonna go to Ohio State most of the time. It's not very often that you're going to get those guys that flip over from Ohio State and go to the Michigan side, just because you grew into these childlike being a fan of the team. But I mean, that's not kind of the way that Notre Dame even gets to recruit anymore. Notre Dame kind of had to go a different way about recruiting. And I think that's something that does stick for Ohio State still, that might not for a lot of these old traditional schools. But in general, I think that Ryan Day's just he got to live off the Urban Meyer experience for a while. And he does have all of his own recruits in there now, but for the most part, I mean, there's still some attachments there, but
Brian Hartline does all the real recruiting.
Yeah, that's who I would rely on too.
Yeah. Some fun news that made me hate Ohio State a little bit more. My work buddy, who's a fan, he kept calling Ohio State, like Columbus, he kept calling it C-Bus. And every time I heard it, I kind of just wanted to punch a wall a little bit.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, so now I hate it a lot more now. C-Bus. Hey, you want to go to S-Bend for Notre Dame? Get the fuck. T-Lusa? Want to go catch a Bama game?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Speaking of which, that was the game of the weekend, huh? Alabama.
Oh, Auburn. Fuck yeah.
Unbelievable football game there. I honestly, I'm glad that I was able to catch the last half of that game. Was not something that I had circled on my Saturday slate of something that was going to be entertaining. I thought important. I thought Alabama was going to go out there and roll at Auburn, and it wasn't going to be a game at all. And then, oh my God, Auburn had it. Auburn should have won, and Auburn blows the game on a 4th and 21 from the 30.
I think it was 4th and 31.
Oh, it was 4th and goal. I know it was 31.
4th and goal from the 31.
Yeah, I thought that it might have been a 4th and 21 or something like that. But
I,
yeah,
I was at my in-laws, and me and Noah and James were watching it, just kind of standing around the TV. You know, they had people over, and Brian, Bailey's dad, was over there. I was like, Brian, come look at this. They got a running back playing quarterback, and it's 4th and goal from the 31. And then he just fucking dots him up. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what? Nick Saban sold his soul to the devil. Like, it does not make sense. But, I mean, Jada Milroe, great job. The unbelievable pass.
Yeah, I just kind of I don't know if it's more or less an unbelievable pass or just Auburn once again just kind of blowing it on their own end, because it just seems like every single time you watch an Iron Bowl, these teams find a way to blow these games in the final minute in a way that's just so unprecedented. And
there was a little bit of a push off on Alabama too.
Well, you're not going to call that unless
no. You're going to let the kids play unless it's blatant, like 2 full arm extensions and the guy flies forward. You're not calling that.
I think you need to have 2 people covering everybody in the end zone. Like if you're rushing 3, you got 9 people out there. Like there should be 2 people for every guy, and there's no way a guy should be able to get that open. And
yeah, you keep a spy on the quarterback, 3 on the line, everybody else is playing goal line.
Yeah, that was just, I mean, it was just ridiculous to even see that they were in that position. All you had to do was keep the ball in front of you, and you couldn't do it. And it's just honestly just it's Alabama being Alabama, Nick Saban being Nick Saban, and them continuing to find ways to do things that you just don't understand.
We talked about it a few weeks ago. We knew Jaden Milroe was a great passer this whole time. Saban's just kept been hiding it, waiting for the right opportunity to bring it out.
Yeah, I don't think he's that great. He's just a guy who got by once again, very luckily. There's just no excuse for it. Alabama shouldn't have won that football game. Auburn should have.
No, but that's the Alabama effect.
Yeah, Auburn.
What was it called? Somebody, the Alabama miracle.
Yeah, whatever. It's more or less just game bad, because that's what it was. If you can't make a play on, if you can't make a stop on a 31-yard play, like that's just pathetic, and that's why you're a 6-6 football team. I mean, that's the game of your season. That's your Super Bowl, and you played that well the whole entire way to allow for that to be the way that you go out. Like, I don't.
Yeah, you're not going to any meaningful bowl game as a 500 team, so like that is your bowl game.
Yeah, I don't even know if I mean, I guess they'll go to a bowl game. I don't know. I know a lot of these schools like won't accept bowl games sometimes, and I think it's one of those games where it's like, well, Auburn, you finished 6-6 and probably shouldn't go play in your bowl game, because that was silly. It was ridiculous. I wouldn't even be able to step out onto a football field if I was part of that team blowing a game like that. It's too big of a rivalry. You got to be better than that, and that's just ugh.
That game was a lot of fun, though. Really, just really aggressive football, really chippy football. You know, blows after whistles, and
yeah.
Florida stayed with FSU for a while.
Yeah, we kind of already went over it a little bit there. I thought Florida was gonna pull away and get the win in this one. You know, it was a game that they really needed. I mean, they're not even going to go to a bowl game at 5-7 this year, but we know that at the beginning of this season, kind of talked a little bit about how Florida's in the beginning stages of trying to turn around the program with a new regime and get them back to the standard that they're used to playing there in the swamp. And this could have been a big win in terms of recruiting and getting to go that way. And overall, it was just Florida State was more physical, overall more talented roster at this point. And even without Jordan Travis, Florida State's still able to kind of carry on by dominating the second half in a game that Florida was the better team throughout most of the first half and beyond. And then Florida State just was able to make the adjustments and do what they had to do to make sure they took the game over in the second half.
Yeah, I caught a lot of that second half. I didn't get to watch all of it, but the first half, Florida, I kept checking the score, and like they were with them the whole time. So I mean, what was it, like 15-14 going into half or something like that? And
Yeah,
I think
I don't
Florida
know.
State put up a couple more scores in the second half. I don't think Florida found the end zone in the second half, but
Yeah,
another in-state rivalry, kind of little close for comfort type of situation.
yeah. I just remember seeing when Florida was up. They looked like they were. It just looked like for a while there that they were the much better team at the beginning of the game, and Florida State was kind of feeling those effects of not having Jordan Travis, and there was a little bit of panic, and it took a little bit of time for them to get into their own in this game and have the confidence to be able to go out there and win without Jordan Travis in this game, because Florida was up 12-7 at the half, and then
12-7.
yeah, and then Florida State took the lead back on the first drive of the third quarter, and then Florida was able to kick a field goal kind of late into the third, and they were up, and then Florida State dominated the fourth quarter from out there and ended up winning the game. So
yeah, they were definitely missing that ground attack presence that Travis brought, but hung in there, pulled it out.
Yeah, so I mean that's good. It's gonna be interesting to see how they kind of perform, like I said, against Louisville this week. I don't really want to see Florida State in the college football playoff anymore. I'd rather see Oregon in there, but it's gonna be impossible to say no to them if they remain undefeated, and they might come in as the number 3 and have to play Michigan, and you might get that Georgia versus Oregon matchup if Oregon beats Washington. I feel like I'm kind of talking in terms of like Washington already lost to Oregon. That's kind of where I feel it's going to go. I mean, but it can go either way. That's going to be the game to watch on Friday, is to see how Oregon and Washington perform, because that's as good as it's going to get for the rest of the time watching these games until January 1st, pretty much. So,
yeah, I mean, Cam Ward almost pulled it off on Saturday. Washington State.
Yeah,
that was a heartbreaker.
That's been Washington for the last month and a half of the season, is just kind of not dominating teams, finding a way to get out of games with wins. I mean, they've been underdog in a couple of these games as an undefeated team. Like, as the season's gone on, the faith in Washington has gotten worse and worse and worse. Like, no one just believes that this team is that damn good. I think and when you think about it, going into this game, like the winner between Bo Nix and Michael Penix is probably going to decide the Heisman race at this point. I mean, all the other guys that were involved in the Heisman race have pretty much fallen off for the most part. Even JJ McCarthy, like,
about Jaden Daniels still hanging around.
Yeah, but LSU itself just kind of meh. They're mid. I don't think that you get much hype around being a mid team.
Yeah,
I think it's more or less if Bo Nix wins this game, Bo Nix is the Heisman, and I don't see how you give it to anyone else. But Jaden Daniels isn't going to play another football game this year until bowl game, and
yeah,
that doesn't come into effect. The Heisman,
you don't get that extra game.
Yeah.
When is Heisman voting, or the ceremony is the day before the bowl games? Is that New Year's Eve?
No,
or is it a week before?
Way earlier than that.
Is it?
Yeah, because they wouldn't have these guys travel to somewhere.
Oh yeah, right before bother their practices and shit.
They do this in like the first or second week of December.
I always forget. Whatever. But I mean, yeah, as far as big games go, that's really what we were kind of expecting. I mean, maybe not so much Bama and Auburn, but like OSU and Michigan, Florida State, Washington State weren't really expecting that. I don't really give a shit, but how about your boys up at Northwestern?
Yeah, Northwestern able to go to 7-5 and take out U of I this week. Awesome to
No
see.
bowl game.
Yeah, so no bowl game for U of I. Whatever. I don't like U of I at all. Never have. So,
what's your beef with U of I?
I think that it was just more or less like when I was actually in college, it kind of turned into a beef because a lot of the friends or people that left high school and they went to U of I, a lot of them had this like, well, we're better than you. We're better than NIU. We're better than blah, blah.
Right.
We're
better than Eastern, better than ISU, better than NIU, right?
We're the best school in the state. Yeah. And it's like, okay, guys, like, whatever.
We get it. Okay, relax.
Go to college. I mean, I do the same thing as you guys do on the weekend.
I'm drunk at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I don't think anybody here is better than the other.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I do the same thing. I go, I learn, I pass a test, and then I get drunk. All right. That's my weekly routine. You know, that's all I got to do. And I don't care where you go to school. Like, you're not like this huge better person than me because you went to U of I, which Northwestern's a better academic school anyway. So those Northwestern kids should be like, well, we're better than you. But I didn't have any.
Chicago's Ivy League, right? That's what they call it.
Yeah, even though that should be Chicago State, but Northwestern is, you know, it's the smart kid school. I didn't have any friends who went to Northwestern. I think there was one girl that I remember from my high school that went to Northwestern because we all weren't that smart. So
my valedictorian went to Notre Dame.
We had one girl too who went to Notre Dame, and that I remember. But yeah, I think that's it. One girl that went to Notre Dame and one there was another girl who went to Northwestern. So
oh, okay. Yeah, I remember our valedictorian went to Notre Dame, our salutatorian went to U of I, and then I don't know about anybody else. There were no like major like signings, you know, like they'll take the pictures and post them on Facebook.
You went to Harvard.
Everybody was just like, oh, I'm going to Eastern. I'm going to Western. This guy's going to DeVry. He's going to UTI.
Yeah, I got.
We had two cool things.
Before we kind of get into the coaching carousel here, which is kind of the major news of the week, we could go over a little bit of what we went through on Friday's episode when me, Ross, and Chris all picked our teams that would and would not make a bowl game. Just to break it down, I know Ross will probably check out this episode later, but Ross was the only loser in this challenge here. As Ross had, 4 losses. He picked 4 games incorrectly, which it'd be really irritating if we ended up betting every single team on the money line here and only lost 2 games each, because that's what happened with me and you. We both lost 2 games. The ones that I lost was I picked Florida to beat Florida State. I thought we were getting the upset there. And then I lost Virginia beating Virginia Tech because I thought with the way Virginia's had these crazy wins this year, even though they've been pretty bad, I thought Virginia would end up getting to pull one out. The one that you lost was
I know I lost South Carolina.
Let me see, where is it? Yeah,
and then Minnesota maybe.
South Carolina and Minnesota were the 2 games. So yeah, I picked Wisconsin to win that one. You and Ross both lost that by picking Minnesota. Kind of sticking.
PJ Fleck has let me down for the last time.
I'm seeing PJ Fleck in Minnesota might be playing New Mexico State in a bowl game. So old head coach at Minnesota, Jerry Kill, getting to go and face PJ Fleck. And
I did see that actually, yeah.
And PJ Fleck years ago when he first took over for Minnesota, basically kind of ripped Jerry Kill and the players that he brought in, saying that they were all super soft and not the type of players that he wants on his team, blah, blah. So when he was going whole reform with Minnesota, he kind of ripped Jerry Kill, and Jerry Kill kind of came back at him. Jerry, had to retire because of for the time being, at least because of some health concerns he's had. I mean, he was having constant seizures and stuff, and it just wasn't good for him to be on the sideline. It seems like he got that under control and was able to get another head coaching job with New Mexico State. And he turned around that school completely, as I think they went 9-3 this year. So Jerry Kill's always been a really good coach, a coach that I've always liked, being an NIU alum in the years that he had there. He kind of had a transitional period where he made NIU good, and then the transitional coach Dave Doran continued to feed off that, and now Dave Doran's had a great career at North Carolina State. So nothing but love for Jerry Kill. So if that game does happen, I'll be rooting for Jerry Kill all day. And
I have never understood like that disrespect between coaches. Like, how do you there's that's like a fraternity of brothers, like coaches.
Yeah,
like, you can't go publicly saying like how Sean Payton said that about Nathaniel Hackett at Denver.
I think PJ Fleck's just a different type of person in general. He kind of carries himself with this bullshit swagger that I first liked, and then over the years I've kind of just been like, well,
like he never actually touched a football in his life. He's just Jonah Hill from Moneyball, like just does everything on the computer. Huge sabermetrics guy. Like, we're gonna win football games in the classroom. And then you go out there on the gridiron, you're like, oh fuck.
Well, there was I forget what year it was, but there was that year a few years back where it was like, dang, Minnesota might win the Big Ten West. Like, they're a good team. And they ended up falling apart and not being able to pull it out.
I feel like they do that like every third year. They have like a 9-3 season.
Yeah. I think that like there was a point where PJ Fleck was going to get like a bigger job, and then Minnesota came back to Minnesota relevancy and that same team sense. So that kind of just went out the window, even though I know his name still comes up from time to time when some of these jobs open up. He just hasn't really done anything to put Minnesota above that 500 mark that they're typically at.
I think you're right. He just carries that kind of swagger to him that like everybody knows the name of the Minnesota head coach. Yeah. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, everybody knows the name PJ Fleck. Like, you say it and someone in the bar is like, oh, Minnesota.
Yeah. And I that's just the way it is. Not really. Not too understanding of why, but
like, oh, Nick Saban. Yep. Mac Brown. Yep. PJ Fleck. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the games that we did cover, in terms of that, I mean, there was nothing really crazy in terms of upsets or anything like that ended up costing team a bowl season. But with the way that the bowl season did break down, James Madison gets to go to a bowl game because there wasn't enough 6-6 teams. So there's some good news, as James Madison fought all year to try and get into a bowl game. And now,
you know what really pisses me off about that, though? If they didn't have to petition a million times, like, these players were probably walking out of the tunnel with like their heads down, like, what the fuck are we playing for? Like, if they had this news prior to losing that one game, like, maybe they're undefeated. Maybe they would be put in the New Year's Six over Liberty.
Yeah, that's something I've kind of thought and pushed around too, is that this was an opportunity for them to get into that major bowl game, and they got that loss, so now they're going to end up playing. They might even play like a Liberty, because Liberty's an undefeated team who doesn't get a New Year's Six bowl game with the way Tulane's playing, unless Tulane loses to SMU this week, which I could see happening because Tulane hasn't really been that impressive in terms of the way they've been winning football games. It's just that they've been winning football games. So I kind of hope that SMU does lose and Liberty wins their bowl game, I think, or their championship game. Liberty plays their championship game on Friday night in comparison with the Pac-12 title game. So hopefully Liberty pulls out a win, and I kind of would be rooting against Tulane on a Saturday afternoon against SMU just to kind of see that undefeated Liberty team get that bowl game that I think that they might deserve a little bit more. I know Tulane's only loss was to Ole Miss, so you can't sit there and fault them for that.
Can't disqualify them for that.
But at the same point,
And Ole Miss is an 11-1 team, right?
They have
or do they have a second loss?
Yeah, they have at least 2 now because
they beat Mississippi State. That's right. Okay.
But yeah, it is good to see that James Madison will at least get to play a bowl game of some sort for the 11-1 season that they did have.
The old white men are absolutely losing their minds right now.
Well, that was actually part of their own rules. So if there's 6-6 teams out there, which there's not, there's a lot of mediocrity in the world. And we all picked against Colorado State in that Hawaii game, but
and what Hawaii won by a field goal, I think, right?
Yeah, and that was one where it was just kind of like, okay, like you could kind of see it flipping over, but no, there wasn't really anything out there that really changed the way that things would look in terms of the amount of 6-6 teams out there throughout the season. So it was actually a very mid week in terms of just games that happened, and all the favorites went out there and took care of business for the most part. So
yeah, I mean, there was a game in every slate that was a good game worth watching, though. So like, I know you rock the multiple TVs. I only do when it's warm out. I don't flood my basement with TVs because my kids would probably just tear them down. Ooh. But so I guess this week I had the laptop going, but I mean, like that BYU Oklahoma State game was great in the 2:30 slot. Obviously Washington State, Bama, Auburn. That later slate had Florida. Was it Florida State at 6:00?
Game, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it kept you entertained if you were only watching one TV all weekend, but as a whole, no, nothing amazing happened.
No, I mean there was good games, and I mean there was good games that were better than a lot of the games that we actually normally get to see in a normal week. It's just that nothing happened in terms of huge upsets or anything along that way besides Louisville taking the loss, but nothing that ended up affecting the bowl picture in terms of the 5 and 6 teams. That was not unexpected to begin with. And with that, we'll kind of get into what the bigger news throughout the whole entire week and days and everything to come is going to be. It's going to be this coaching carousel, as you are going to start seeing kind of like at, what is it? They call it like Black Monday, the day after the last day of the NFL season, where all these coaches, you wake up Monday morning and at 8 a.m. it's like, okay, well, this
then relieved.
Next one, yeah. So, and that's kind of what we go through with college football this time of year. Is a lot of the teams are, even if they have bowl games that they made it to, but if they don't want that head coach there, that head coach is not going to be coaching that bowl game. They're gone, and a lot of coaches are going to be jumping. A Saturday night, it sounded like we were getting, after the big upset victory for Kentucky over Louisville, it sounded like we were getting Coach Mark Stoops going and taking the biggest job available so far in the Texas job.
I don't know who leaked that, but it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we were texting back and forth for 2 minutes, and then it was nowhere. Like the internet was scrubbed of it.
Yeah, I mean, that came out, and then I literally was looking online at that point, and I think I was half asleep actually, and then because I had Survivor Series on my laptop, and I was watching whatever I was watching because I was just so damn tired all weekend. I kind of turned around and looked at my laptop, and it was the moment that Survivor Series was ending and CM Punk came out, and I was just like, CM Punk's really back with this company. What's going on? My brain was just trying to register coming back to being awake. And then obviously,
was there ice cream?
No, there was no ice cream. But obviously, since I saw that, I turned the volume up, and then I went on the internet, and I was up for like another 2 hours trying to look at CM Punk stuff and all the college football stuff that was coming out, and because I was just so like in shock and in awe of everything that was going on. And I'm like looking at him like, well, it looks like Mark Stoops isn't getting this job that he was getting when I first fell asleep. But and The main reason for that had to be just because the Texas A&M fan base was instantly like, no, we don't want him. And it was just like, okay, wow, this is kind of surprising. Like they're instantly like taking back, like the fan base instantly reacted and said like, we don't want this guy here. And that's sure enough what kind of happened. It seemed is all of a sudden it was like, yo, no, we weren't going to do that to begin with. We didn't.
Just kidding, gotcha.
Yeah, and it ended up being that Duke's head coach Mike Elko is taking the job at Texas A&M. So honestly, I think it's a great idea for Texas A&M to start with someone who's fresh-minded, someone who's working their way up instead of taking a proven name like they just did in the past with Jimbo Fisher. Kind of given someone who's already created his own program from the ground, got them going. Could have been a lot better season at Duke for him as well if it wasn't for injuries.
Yeah, they lost their final 5 or something.
They did win this week, I believe. Yeah, they did win this week, but they fell apart with the Riley Leonard injury, which another big part of this, Mike Elko leaving is do not be surprised if Riley Leonard is your next Notre Dame quarterback, as he will probably be answering the transfer portal and seems like the perfect fit for the Irish.
Yeah, they lost 4 of their last 6, is what I was thinking. I don't hate that at all. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. A lot of people I've seen on Reddit are liking Stephen Jelly.
No.
But I think the transfer portal is where Freeman's going to go. I don't think it's a hot seat like Ross does. I definitely think it's getting warm, though.
I
think Freeman has to do something now, and that's going to be bringing in transfers, because you can't start a true freshman out there or a redshirt, a sophomore out there.
You can't. I think Marcus Freeman right now, there is no hot seat on him. I don't think it's at that point either. Lou Holtz came to Notre Dame and started 13-10. Brian Kelly was like 16-10 to start here. Marcus Freeman,
he had 1 year in the middle that they went like 4-8 too, right? Was that like 2014 or 15?
Yeah, they had some bad years in there, and Marcus Freeman to start at Notre Dame is 17-7. So we started off better than Lou Holtz, and then Brian Kelly, which I mean, as much as we hold against him for the way that he left, Brian Kelly was a great coach at Notre Dame for over a decade of pretty much just winning all the time.
Freeman is coaching Kelly's recruits still.
Yeah, and he's still bringing in his own and whatnot, and they're not as high of recruits as we once thought we were getting at the beginning of the Freeman era, but he's still doing a top 10 recruiting job there. So I don't think you could really sit there and say he's on a hot seat of any sort, just because he's been better than 2 legends of Notre Dame coaching. Were to start their careers. But granted, he comes out there next year and the team goes 6-6. Yeah, it's not going to end well for him. But if the team is continuously making an improvement and they go out there and win another bowl game in a couple of weeks here, because Notre Dame doesn't normally win a lot of bowl games. If they go out there and win a bowl game, even if they don't have starters out there, I mean, I highly doubt we're going to see Audric Estime in that game.
Right.
So I would think that we will see Sam Hartman in that game, because Hartman has a lot more to prove, I think, for the NFL than a lot of other guys do. But there's going to
Estime does not after this weekend.
Yeah, Estime is easily number 1. I'm seeing arguments that he might be the number 2 guy coming out of the NFL draft, but he's going to be 1 or 2 as the running back coming out this year. So he doesn't really have much more to show.
And another issue that always gets overlooked, which as a fan I hate, but for the school I understand, is their academic standards are ridiculous. Like, me and you have no idea how many 5-star running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, linemen, tight ends, DBs want to play for Notre Dame, but they're C+ students.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not in those rooms. We're not we're not, sitting on their parents' couch being like, hey, man, you're a junior. You get your grades up. If you want to actually play first, you can. And they just don't, or they can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Notre Dame holds a B+ standard for student athletes. Like, it's ridiculous. It's up there with shitty schools like Northwestern, all the Ivy Leagues, obviously.
Yeah. And
it makes it very tough to recruit, and it really dwindles down your options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who, went through the college system, and I graduated college, but I didn't necessarily get the degree that I wanted because there was one class that really just I could not get. I couldn't understand it. My brain just wouldn't let me get there with it. And honestly, that's just kind of how it works in terms of being educated and whatnot. Like, sometimes you just don't have it to be able to get there with certain classes and certain standards. Like, not everyone's going to understand math. Not everyone's going to understand science. Not everyone's going to be able to grab it, like, understand and retain this information. And that does have an effect in terms of what can actually go into schools like Notre Dame in terms of the football players. And it's the same thing that you get with Northwestern over there in the Big Ten. They can't compete with these other Big Ten schools most of the time because the standards just aren't as high at other schools as it is for them. And that's the same thing with Notre Dame. And Notre Dame might have the best shot at the streamline for all the best recruits, but yeah, not being the greatest grade wise and is a big problem for them. And
well, like, even like you were saying, for me, I was always fairly good in school. Like, I was never an issue with grades, but I'm terrible at tests. So, like, all the schoolwork, I did it all. I did well on it all, and then I did poorly on most of the tests. It made me, a B- student once it all evened out. But even with my GPA when I graduated, I had a pretty bad, I don't even want to say it online, pretty bad SAT or ACT score, whatever we take. And I missed the cutoff by 1 point for, like, Moraine. Like, they wanted me to take, like, catch-up classes. I'm like, I was just doing this math last year, or this English last year. I don't need this. You're just wasting my time and money.
Yeah.
And it honestly put me off going to Moraine. I was like, fuck this. I'm taking a year off. I'm going to make some money. And I just never went back.
Yeah, I understand how that can be with it, because that's literally what it was for me. Is like, I could do all the school work, like getting my homework done and stuff. Like, that's not a big deal, and getting it done correctly is not a big deal. But you put a test in front of me, sometimes you just freeze and you panic. And honestly, that could be a big reason why I'm kind of in the career that I'm in right now. Even it's like, I definitely don't want to be doing what I'm doing right now. I don't like it at all, but I would. I don't want to sit there and have to go through taking specific tests and
aptitude tests and all that.
I don't need that anxiety on me on top of it too. So
I had to take the goddamn Wonderlic test for my draft position this year in fantasy football.
Jesus.
But all right, enough about us. Riley Leonard to Notre Dame is one of the few possibilities. I know Ross said, was it Will Rogers from Mississippi State, I think, was a viable option, but we're going to keep seeing a lot as the time goes on, obviously, and nobody's like these coaches. I don't think any of these players are going to be making a choice like that. So,
no. What else did we have so far within the coaching carousel? As I'm drawing a blank right now.
Jonathan Smith is leaving the Pac-2 for the Big 18.
Yeah, so Jonathan Smith will be taking over at Michigan State. That was kind of the first news that broke in terms of any major school news. Michigan State, obviously, coming off the biggest drama that always happens in the Big Ten and happens with that school and everything like that. So, going to be a test for Jonathan Smith to come in there and try and turn around. Mel Tucker was able to turn the school around after some struggling seasons. And then obviously everything happened that happened. And I think last year was another bad year for Michigan State on top of this one. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be possible for him to come in and just kind of step right up and turn around right away, especially now that the conference is getting a little bit tougher.
I I think that like when they sit down with these athletic directors and stuff and go through like the whole interview process, what are you going to do differently so we don't end up back in this position? How do you plan to approach all this? I think that somewhere in there, there's an understanding of this school has a black eye right now. And on top of that, we're not performing. So I think there has to be an understanding of like, it might take a couple of years. Parents might not even want their kids coming to this school right now.
Wait, did I do that wrong?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mike Elko took the Mississippi State job.
No, Elko took the A&M job.
So that's what I thought. And then on ESPN, I'm just kind of looking through. Duke has big shoes to fill with Elko gone. Mike Elko, who engineered an impressive turnaround at Duke, has left to be the head coach at Mississippi State. And I'm like, wait.
No.
That's not right.
I've got Google showing me A&M right now. I had the Bleacher Report fucking notification pop up. It's definitely A&M.
I'm literally like, I've literally seen this news like 5 times. Like, all right, ESPN, you're messing with my head right now.
Get out of my head.
Yeah, this is why I don't trust the 4-letter network.
But in related searches, it said why Texas A&M vetoed the hiring of Mark Stoops.
There you go.
Well, that'll be a fun read for when we're off the air.
Yeah. So, all right, Jonathan Smith over to Michigan State, Elko over to Texas A&M. Indiana has fired their head coach, Tom Allen. Indiana looked like they were actually kind of on the up and ups a couple of years ago, and then now a couple of disappointing seasons for them. And then also the other one is Houston's head coach, Holgerson, is out with a $14.8 million buyout as Houston tries to improve with being part of the Big 12 now. So that's all that's kind of happened so far. This is there's probably gonna be more news within today. There's gonna probably be more news tomorrow, and it's gonna continue to happen throughout the week with some of these coaches who don't want to go or who they don't want to be around. A lot of the lower tier schools have dropped their head coaches already and are looking for replacements, which that's going to leave jobs open for a lot of offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators out there. But I think there was one good offensive coordinator who left for another job. I want to say it was Ohio State's.
That'd be Brian Hartline. He's not going anywhere.
Oh, it was okay. It's Oklahoma's offensive coordinator, Jeff Levy. He took the Mississippi State job. So that's
your confusion right there.
Yeah. Okay. So and I don't know why ESPN wrote that article wrong. They need to fix their website.
Oh, Bruno, breaking news.
Ooh, cool.
Well, not giant news, but news. Baylor quarterback Blake Shapen 13 minutes ago has announced he's entering the transfer portal. Yeah,
honestly, I could go through that list right now too, as that's all starting to come out today as well. So even Michigan State quarterback Hauser entered a transfer portal today. I believe that today was the second day in a row that the Colorado Buffaloes have lost a quarterback recruit. So a lot of stuff is kind of starting to break down. This will probably be something that we could tackle again within the next week and a half, and kind of go more in depth about with the amount of moves that are going to be happening, because honestly, we're to the point where our shows are going to probably start being more, hey, can you get on a Saturday afternoon? Can you get on a Sunday morning or something like that? Because we ain't going to have much to preview during Mondays and Fridays anymore. That's kind of all. After championship week, next Monday might be our last normal Monday scheduled show. And then from there, we'll probably be doing a lot of random shows throughout the rest of the season. maybe still probably trying to get 2 in there a week, but it's just not going to need to be in the order that we've been doing it. So we'll try and get more out there. That's one thing that I'm hoping too, is like next season, maybe I won't be working overnights all the time, and we can kind of have more to cover throughout the week of the basis and everything like that, because our work schedules are not conducive towards anything but our Mondays and Fridays.
This is new. I don't know if you saw this. I'm just scrolling through college football news right now. Delaware will become the first program to pay a new application fee to move to Conference USA. So they're moving up to, FBS Division I, but they have to pay a $5 million application fee.
Does that mean that they don't have to go through all the same bullshit that James Madison had to go through?
I didn't read into it. It'll be Conference USA. Application fee used to be $5,000.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, what's that, like 100,000%?
That's not good. I'm just gonna let you guys know, Delaware, you got screwed.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Well, I doubt that there's any type of exceptions that were actually made in this situation. So,
yeah, NCAA is not exactly a meet me halfway. They're a meet me all the way kind of organization. But hey, Joe Flacco came from there.
Great. Oh yeah, he did, and he just got another NFL job this past week. So good for him.
Did he really?
Yeah, he signed to be the backup with, or was it this past week? Was it the Browns? I think he's with the Browns now.
Good for him. I like Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I think he's there to help him out a little bit.
I don't understand this at all, but John Gruden, I don't know why I said Jonathan. John Gruden is being considered for the Indiana job.
What kind of sources do you have? Like
I can't reveal my sources,
Random dude on Twitter. He has a blue check mark. He paid for it. I'm gonna sit there and call bullshit on that one. That's just how I feel. If it happened, that would be one hell of a story.
Big wild card candidate for Indiana football job. Oh God, Fox News.
That's just like saying the same thing that Ryan Day was going to leave for Texas A&M. It's
New York Post, Larry Brown Sports, nothing major. Bleacher Report has it, but I doubt they wrote it. They probably picked it up somewhere. 24/7 Sports, it's out there, but the Athletic has it.
Interesting.
Tommy Reese is also on that list of possible replacements. I don't understand how or why, but.
Well, I would get it. Going to a lower tier Indiana school. He's young. So
his career's already writing itself. I mean, you want to go to Indiana and lose 8 games and really tarnish your what you have as a resume so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a good time.
How'd you do in betting this week, Brew?
Back to normal, sucking.
Yeah.
Last week I was really damn good, and then this week was not so great. I believe
you should have took the bowl games. You would have been 20-2.
Yeah, right. No, I
piggyback all of these. Write it down right now.
I lost 5 and I won 3, so it's not the end of the world. But one of those losses was Miami, Ohio. I had a -4 against Ball State, and Ball State kicked a field goal with 2 minutes left to make it 17-15. So I don't know why they even kicked the field goal at that point.
Go for it.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I was like, okay, cool.
So that's a bad beat. Don't even count that one. It's all right.
I had Syracuse win over Wake Forest. That was one of the easier ones. I had Old Dominion. I had a -2.5. They won 25-24. So Another one there, but Old Dominion was losing that game. It didn't look like they were going to actually win and make a bowl game. They were on our bowl game list, and Old Dominion was down big at one point and ended up coming back to win. I was actually kind of shocked to see that they even won that football game. I had UNLV -2.5, and they got blown the fuck out. They were not very good at all. I had Alabama -13. We all know what happened there, as Auburn made it very competitive. I had Fresno State that did not play very well on Friday night. They were not looking too good. I had North Carolina State covering at +2.5 over North Carolina. The money line would have been great there, as North Carolina State blew North Carolina out. But yeah, I mean, that's just a prototypical week. So I'm 63 and 66. And I've been looking at these championship games, and I'm having a hard time finding anything I really want to bet on with them.
I don't really think there's going to be like a true underdog bet for me to even make with these coming up here.
No, it's going to be some tough games. Honestly, like I'm more excited to watch Toledo and Miami, Ohio on Saturday morning than I am the Texas Oklahoma State game Saturday morning. So that's just kind of how I think about that. But I might take Oklahoma State. I think that's the best spread that I've seen so far, because OK State's getting 14 points, and I just haven't seen Texas really blow out and hold on to blowing out teams lately. So, but
that first half, man, BYU had Oklahoma State sweating bad. They had me sweating.
Oklahoma State's not that good.
Neither is BYU.
I don't understand how
Jake Retzlaff.
Oklahoma State being in the Big 12 title game is kind of funny to me. I just don't understand how they were good enough to get to this point. But
that's Big 12, baby.
The Big 12 doesn't make any sense.
I took Houston this week +14 against UCF, and they covered perfectly. So they pushed. So that brings my regular season record down to 8-3-1, I believe.
See, I remember looking at that, and Houston was down pretty big. I thought they weren't going to be able to cover. So that's good that they did. Take
a push.
Yeah.
8-3-1 on the season. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, we'll kind of see what happens if I have anything that I really want to bet on next weekend, because that's going to be tough. Even like I think Oregon's going to win this game, but 9 points. I'm just kind of like,
yeah, that I don't know. I mean, when we were talking about it earlier, I was kind of going over Washington's schedule, and it seems like after week 2, they really weren't that great.
No.
But they found a way to keep winning.
Yeah, that's why they've been underdogs. That's why,
like Arizona State, it was like a true Iowa score, like 12-7, I think it was. Let me find it really fast.
It was 12-7. That was the game, because they didn't score the offensive touchdown. They scored via pick 6.
Yeah, so like the first 3 weeks, before they really dipped into the Pac-12, they played Boise State, Tulsa, and at Michigan. It was 56-19, 43-10, 41-7. And then they got into, they played Cal. They won 59-32. And then they played Arizona, which is what really put Arizona on everybody's maps, beating them by 1 score. Barely beat Oregon. Iowa game against Arizona State. Beat Stanford by 9, who's terrible. Beat USC by 10. Beat Utah by a score. Oregon State by 2. And now Washington State down bad Washington State by 24-21. So, I mean, are they the worst good team right now? Probably Florida State, but I mean, it's just been so all over the place with them this year. It's kind of been like 1 week we're like high on them, the next week like, who the fuck even are these guys?
That's why I don't really know what to think with them against Oregon, except thinking that Oregon's going to win. But I think that they'll keep it close, but they might not. I don't know. It's just, I think Oregon's going to win. I think that Oregon's going to prove to be the better team in this one, but it's just too hard to even think about how to go about that number, just because it does seem like a lot for a team that hasn't lost a game and a team that did beat Oregon earlier in the year.
Yeah, because like I don't think Oregon's going to beat them by 9, but I also don't think Washington's going to lose by 9.
Yeah,
I'm going to throw a couple bucks on the Oregon money line and call it a day. If it's anything more than like 1 or minus 120 or minus 140, I'm not even going to bother. But
yeah.
Well, you got anything else for us?
No, honestly, just gonna start a long work week, and that's where my mindset is at now until we could get into this championship weekend. So we'll kind of try and follow along throughout the week with any more big breaking news in terms of coaching carousel or players that are going to be moving on to the transfer portal, as more and more news is going to keep breaking throughout today, tomorrow, and throughout the rest of the week. And then even more news will break after the championship week is over and teams start to get their bowl games, as next week we'll know by Sunday, I believe, where everybody's going. So,
All right. I do have a little something before we go. I just popped up. A copy of Mike Elko's A&M contract was leaked. It's supposedly 6 years for $7 million and large incentives for postseason benchmarks, which obviously
$7 million a year.
All this says is 6 years for $7 million. You have to assume it's per year because that's way too low.
Yeah, because that would be kind of a steal at that point. But yeah, 6 years, $7 million a year sounds pretty nice. And Texas A&M, with how high their standards are, I'm sure the postseason standards are not something to take lightly in terms of him getting extra money. So we'll see what kind of program he puts together there. And it doesn't seem like they have the worst groundwork there in terms of the players they do have. So he might not have to have the worst start ever, as you might see with Michigan State next year. That might be difficult, but
yeah. But all righty, Brew.
All right, everybody, you guys have a great week, and we'll be back before the championship games start on Friday.
All right, this has been College Football on Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sportsnet. Good night.